Hey guys, my name's Khadroth, and today I'm going to be talking to you about Percival. Now, Percival is a very strong 4-star unit. He's often regaled as one, having thick thighs, and two, being someone that is just a very good tank. Now, again, I think Percival is coming to us fairly late in the game in that regard, that there are numerous other units that people have that can handle tanking capability, including, and very obviously, MASH. As people have very infamously pointed out, MASH in the Lost Belts has a tendency to be stuck in her Ortonax suit, therefore you lose her sort of same party-wide protection capabilities. This doesn't mean that MASH is bad necessarily at it, but it does mean that there is room for units like Percival to still do work for you. What is very interesting with Percival is that Percival is an arts AoE looper on top of this. He actually can Black Grail loop at times, depending on the node makeup, though you're probably going to be staring down the pipe of a 3-3X type of node for that to be the case. Certainly, if you do start him out with even more charge, he probably can handle still even some unstructured nodes, but there are some considerations for that I'll talk about as we go through. So again, Percival could be a really solid 4-star addition to your roster, but one of the biggest issues that I think people are going to have with him is that he's on the same banners as Melusine a lot. So a lot of the time, people have a tendency to roll Percival when they've already rolled Melusine. We all know that Melusine can do a crazy amount of damage. So this is where it's actually kind of nice that Percival has other options available to him in his kit for what he can do. So again, let's look at his kit right here. To start off with, he's in the 9k attack range. This is not up in the crazy 10k attack range that we see some really high 4-stars in, but 9k is fairly good as far as I'm concerned. This is where I like to see a lot of my 4-star units, and so I'm a-okay with him having that. Again, he's at roughly 12k HP here. This is not bad really either for a 4-star. It's pretty much exactly where we expect. Maybe we would look at it from the perspective of, if he's a tank, then CAD, wouldn't we want a little bit more? And that may be true at least partially, but there are some other considerations here that's going to help him out. Now, as we look at his overall stats here, he is Earth Attribute. He is got a normal Lancer star absorption, a little bit less, and then, again, star generation of 12%. And I think we can owe this to, again, he's just arts. Now, he does have an NP charge attack rate of 0.64, also one lower than Melusine's, kind of interesting there. And then your standard NP charge defense here of 4%, actually one higher than the average, but still pretty much what we expect for him as well. So that's actually going to be a really good thing because, you know, we talked about this with Melusine. The 4% charge for every hit of an attack that you receive is, you know, definitely a nice thing to have, but it's, at the end of the day, if you're playing Melusine right, probably not going to be too much of a concern. However, if you're using Percival right, you are very likely to be able to employ this to great effect. So him having the ability to be able to soak hits and kind of force the enemy to hit him is going to be a really, really good thing for him to have than extra higher NP charge defense. His death rate here is going to be 36%. That is something that I think you guys should be concerned with. Most of the time when you're going to be fighting things, you're not going to be fighting stuff that has death proc, but should the off chance happen that you are facing something, Percival might not be the best choice to go up against them, since he does have a higher than average death rate. His alignment is lawful good here. He is male. He's a Brynhilder's beloved unit, hominide, humanoid, riding a round table knight, a servant, a 7-knight servant, and weak to Enema Elish. Again, if you're unsure of what 7-knight servant means as opposed to round table knight is the trait that Morgan Le Fay exploits. 7-knight servant is the trait that Draco exploits. So again, they're just two different ones that have sort of similar terminology. Looking at his overall deck here for his cards, he's 2B, 2A, 1Q. This is, again, very similar to Melusine. Sometimes when we have back-to-back releases like this, I do wonder if they copy their homework and transfer it over. But again, this is not your standard Lancer deck. Like, and again, we pretty much talked about this before, that standard Lancer deck here is going to be 2B, 2Q, and 1A. So again, we have the extra arts card, and that's good for him because he's certainly someone that is going to be arts focused. So having the ability to be able to form a triple arts chain with his arts cards is going to be nice. Again, he does have the Buster cards here. This is going to help him pop off a little bit more, but I think the concerning thing is going to be the hit count. Not really overall his cards, just on his arts card. Everything else, hit counts wise here, is average. His arts card, though, is only a 2-hit, and that is going to be at least something of a concern, but he does make up for this with some of his buffs that we're going to show here in the kit. So as we get to his active skills here, you guys can see he increases his own arts performance here with his first skill for 3 turns by up to 30%. He charges his own NP gauge 20%, and then can increase the party's NP damage for 3 turns by 20%. So there's a couple things to denote here. One, he's got a multi-turn steroid that is going to help his refund capability on his NP. 2, this will help, again, his arts carding. So again, having the lower hit counts on the arts card is not going to matter as much when you have buffs to the actual arts card. And then 3 here is going to be the fact that while he does charge his own gauge here, and it is nice, it's only 20%, and it is tied to his steroid, that's 3 turns. So you're heavily incentivized to pop this on turn 1. That's going to be one of the things that you're going to watch out for. There may be some scenarios where you don't want to use his charge turn 1, but you're kind of going to be forced to, and this is the only charge he has in his kit. So that it is something to be concerned with if you're facing an odd structured node where you're not sure you're going to have enough refund on one wave. Keep in mind that you're not going to have the unit self-charge to bail you out then, since you will probably have already popped this turn 1. But there could be some scenario where maybe you're able to delay it, or maybe you just have, again, your supports fill in the gaps for you. And that is what I think a lot of people will do. Another thing to denote here is because he does have party-wide MP damage for 3 turns, this does mean that he can be, again, boosted with Oberon's 3rd skill, or be used as a little bit more of a pseudo-support where he can take out a wave or 2 for you, but also buff some other damage dealer's capability to deal damage with their NP. So again, a nice little aspect there that they threw in his kit. Now his second skill here is, again, going to be his taunt skill. It's his 500% chance to draw the attention of all enemies to self by 300% for 3 turns. Don't worry about the percentages here, just understand it is a 3-turn self-taunt. It's also going to increase his own NP generation rate when taking an attack for 3 turns by 50%. So if you remember that 4%, this is basically going to add 50% to that, making this into an equivalent 6% here whenever he takes a hit from an attack. Not bad. That does mean that as he's getting hit, he's going to charge even more faster and faster. So this may not look that good on paper, but it is going to be something that I think you'll notice as you start actually using him. He can very easily get back to his NP if the enemy has high hit counts and they just keep hitting him repeatedly. So it is a really, really nice thing to have. His 3rd skill here is obviously going to be one that grants an ally invincibility. So it's not just him. He can target this. It's also going to recover the target's HP by 2,000. So he has a hard defense skill with a heal on it, and it can be used either on himself or on an ally. I'm going to say most of the time you're going to use this on himself. And the reason being is because of the taunt. You're probably very likely to pair those 2 skills together. But there are some sacrifice strategies where sometimes you just have him taunt and basically have him go down while ending up utilizing the invuln on someone else. The issue with that is you're probably unlikely to use that sort of solution very often. It probably will be more instead for the heal, or again, maybe to save them from an NP that you know is coming. Otherwise, I'm going to say, if it's just carding, odds are they probably card him out to death and then don't have the capacity to still kill that other unit that he was trying to invuln, and since it's only a 1-turn duration, it wouldn't have mattered too much then. So you'd have gotten him killed functionally for nothing. But again, maybe that's part of your plan in order to rotate the party for some reason. Still, that is his kit. It is a very straightforward, cut and dry kit, but you can see it's actually fairly strong for what he's supposed to do. His passive skills here are Magic Resistance B++, increasing his debuff resistance by 18.5%. Again, always going to be nice. It means it's going to be harder for enemies to debilitate him. And then writing C+ here for quick performance by 7%, which is going to help out that one quick card that he does have. So again, not the best of passives here, but it's not the worst either. Okay, now talking about his append skills here. Of the first two that are permanent, again, we know we have the extra attack finesse here, and for a unit that is a tank, I think this does have some merit, particularly because you know you're going to be in challenge scenarios, and it may come down to a solo or something like that. And in that case, I do think Percival is a decent option. So utilizing something like the extra attack finesse, which doesn't just increase damage of the extra card, but also increases star gen and NP gain, I think could be a decent option. However, I am going to say for most of you, the probably obvious solution is if you're going to be using him for farming, grab that mana loading. This will allow him to start out with 20% of his own, and then utilize his first skill there, that steroid for the arts up of 3 turns, that also has the 20% charge on it. That's going to get you 40% right out of the gate, which does pair well with maybe double Castoria 30%, or again, some sort of other hybrid setup where you're maybe able to get just enough charge on him. But either way, it might depend on what starting craft essence you're using, what the makeup of the node is, and so as a result, I'm still going to recommend mana loading, as it just might get you to an NP easier. Also keep in mind that, again, hybrid comps are a thing. You may discover usefulness where maybe you're utilizing double Castoria, but you're rotating one of them in via plug suit, and then thus your Percival here and then maybe some other damage dealer that I'm just going to call damage dealer 1 are both getting charged, you know, with overflow from the 2 Castorias popping their skill. Maybe as a result of that, Percival doesn't necessarily care too much about getting to his NP, since maybe you have the charge already built in. This would be a good reason to have the mana loading, because it might just allow him to not have to utilize one of the targeted skills from the Castorias in order to finish him off. So again, I do think there's a lot of reason to have this. His third skill here is anti-lance or attack damage aptitude, which I'm just going to say is probably not a good one for him, as he doesn't really have any niche to actually be able to exploit against them otherwise, and this would just be purely neutral damage. So you're probably not going to be taking Percival against them too often, but hey, maybe if you really like Percival and if you really roll a lot of copies of him, wouldn't be the worst thing in the world just in case you had to tank against one of them. But still, I would say that is probably the least useful of the 3 appends. Now, as we get to his Noble Phantasm, you can see here it's a 4-hit AoE Arts NP. And again, you guys already saw he already had a base NP gain rate of 0.64, which is not a bad one. He's going to grant himself Invincibility Pierce here, activating first before his damage goes out for 1 turn. This is then going to deal damage to all enemies, and then recover 1 ally's HP with the lowest HP relative to their max HP by 3,000. So, to make a long story short, Invuln Pierce, deal damage, and then I'm going to heal 1 unit in the party, whichever one of those units has the least HP. And the minutia there is that it's the unit with the least HP relative to their maximum. So it's basically the least HP by percent. Whoever has 60% of their health remaining versus whoever has 65%, the 60% unit would get chosen. So this does mean that it's almost a smart heal. It's gonna focus on the unit that needs it most and then utilize it on them. And again, it is just relative to their max HP, so it's going to be a nice thing that is just going to help kind of spot heal the party. And if you're tanking with him, it's probably going to be him, but it may not be. Maybe they start trying to bully one of the Castorias or the other unit that's there maybe alongside to help him out. And so as a result, this might just act as a little bit of a pick-me-up in order to actually work with it. Now, his overcharge effect here increases his own NP damage for 1 turn, activating first, which again means it's going out before the damage. So really nice then that he gets another additional 20% NP damage here, but do consider the fact that, again, if you're using Oberon with him, this will allow you to be able to double it up again. So always really nice to have this in a unit's kit, especially as an overcharge effect. Sadly, in his case, it is not multi-turn duration, but hey, still better than nothing. Still a nice overcharge effect that actually adds to the damage of the servant. Now, just talking about his damage here. Again, we were here yesterday talking about Melusine and how, again, this spreadsheet can be a little bit deceiving if you don't understand the way it works. Remember, all of these damage numbers here are neutral, and so that's going to be one of the big things to really consider when you start looking at this. Again, understand that each one of these units is only displaying their damage according to their own buffs, not any sort of external source. So no craft essences being added in, no, again, support skills or anything like that. It is assuming rank 10 skills, it is assuming only their own skills, and that's it. So again, you guys can see where Percival's going to land here, and he does land fairly far down the list. However, you might be noticing some other units that might be concerning that they're down here. But the real reason is because a lot of this list is very tight in terms of the actual damage. You guys can see there is not a lot of variant range, as pretty much going down here through over 10 units, we only move 4,000 in actual damage capacity. So yes, getting an NP1 Percival will not be the best damage, but again, this is stacked up against a unit like Melt right here, would be at least somewhat comparable, or Fion. So literally all three of them are right here, with this being Melt, this being Fion, and this being Percival. And the thing to consider is, remember, this includes each unit's own buffs. So this does include Melt's third skill being active, her, again, 60% charge skill. So it is a really, really strong buff there, but that's the thing to consider, is that Percival is, as a result of just having, you know, again, his sort of 3-turn steroid there, just always going to be treading the line even at that exact amount. So you can always rely on Percival to be doing this, and that is one of the things that I think we can say consistency of damage output is an issue for both of these units, whereas at least in Percival's case, he is just going to be calm, cool, and even. It's actually a pretty similar analog to how Parvati and the Valkyries work in the grand scheme of things, because again, they have a very similar relationship where Parvati might be lower on turns that she can't pop her steroids and then go higher on a turn where she can, versus the Valkyries, who are just constantly going to be, you know, moving even across the board. It's going to be kind of a similar deal here with Percival, where he's just going to be moving evenly, and then Melt's going to pop up whenever she uses her third skill. So again, don't be too concerned overall, though, with the damage output, because he's got so much else in his kit that is strong. And remember, he does still have Pierce Invincibility. So given the fact that he can scale up fairly well, given the fact that he is a very good tank, I think he's a nice sort of double-edged unit for you. You guys can use him as your farmer, or you can use him as a challenge unit. And that definitely helps him out, especially considering, like I said, he shares a banner with Melusine. So if you manage to try and roll Melusine, and if you don't get lucky and get her, please understand that odds are you do have a very good replacement option there for you, at least in terms of, hey, he can probably farm some nodes for you. So again, I do think Percival is at least an interesting one. Now, earlier on, I did tell you guys, he can Black Grail loop. The thing is, like I said, he's probably going to be highly beholden to the actual number of enemies in the node, and that's something that I think you guys need to worry about. This is where, you know, comparing him to someone like, say, Melt having the ability to charge 60% can be really strong, because that means that Melt might have the capability of dealing with some sort of odd wave where maybe there was not, you know, enough refund, and she has a lot of charge that she can get in there in order to help her kind of move through it evenly. In Percival's case, he's going to really struggle with stuff like that because his only charge skill is used on turn 1, and you're probably not going to want to delay it because it does impact his refund. So again, it's up to you to determine how to handle that, but in a lot of those cases, I'm going to say you're going to try to take double Castoria and then maybe consider, you know, a Nero Bride as the third support, and Oberon as the third support, or maybe just anyone else that can really help out with either charge or refund. If you find that he still can't handle it because it's not a 3-3-3 node, maybe then that's where you start considering other options instead of something like Black Grail. Maybe something like Heavenly Demon Princess that we already know can give you at least a little bit of extra firepower and a little bit of extra NP gauge to start off with, and is a welfare CE that scales all attack. Remember, this is from the Summer 4 rerun. You guys should have had it if you did play last year. But again, some of you might be even newer than that and not have it, so what do you do if that's the case? Well, then I'm going to recommend you guys go with Ocean Flyer, and really, even in this case, I'm just going to recommend Ocean Flyer over Heavenly Demon Princess long term, because of the fact that this is another welfare CE that will be coming out here very soon with Summer 6 this year. So you guys will be able to get your hands on this to MLB. It is all attack scaling, and again, as you guys can see, it is 50% NP charge, 15% NP damage here, and still 8% arts up on top of that. So it is a very, very nice CE that kind of power creeps some of the older CEs in that regard, and it is a welfare, so you're guaranteed to be able to get it as long as you're playing the event. So this would be a really good sort of in-between craft essence for, hey, I don't really want to risk Black Grail, I'm not sure he's going to have the refund, let's go ahead and start with this. And I think that would work out for you very well. Again, I do think Percival is a fairly straightforward unit. There's not a whole lot to say about him, but do keep in mind that he is someone that has hard survival. He can be a tank for you. He does have both spot healing from that third skill and, again, smart healing from his NP. And all of that is on top of consistent damage output and not bad damage for that matter. So I do think he can be a solid unit for a lot of you. The consideration is just going to be, what about Melusine on that banner? So again, let me know what you guys think about Percival and how many of you guys are going to actually be rolling for him instead of Melusine. I'll be curious to read your comments below, and I will see you guys for the next one.